Going on, Jeromes? Finally getting to some post-draft Q&A. Thank you, everyone who submitted questions in the community tab. We periodically do call-outs for questions for the Q&A videos. You guys are the best. First up is, first of all, our guy Eli Corbett. Freaking on one. I mean, look at this. Look at this glory. Vikings white road uniforms. So McCarthy, number 9, feeling fine with JJ and Hawkinson. Addison's just back there peeking. No. But damn, that looks sexy as hell, man. I love it. Jared Miller, how long has it been since you felt good about the Vikings' future? I was trying to think back. Like, there hasn't been a specific time like this since I've been paying attention to the Vikings, because the Vikings for years, they've always been a veteran-laden team and led by usually a retread quarterback, a veteran guy who's been around the block, whether it's Warren Moon, whether it's Randall Cunningham, whether it's Jeff George, whether it's Gus Frerotte, whether it's Brad Johnson, whether it's whoever. But I can't remember a year where the team, I mean, you might have to go back to the Purple People Eaters when they were getting things together with Bud Grant, but of course that was before my time, where the nucleus is so young, and the vibes are just immaculate, and you have young, homegrown superstars all over the place. It's been a hot second. Plus, all right, so you're going to have J.J. McCarthy, the highest drafted quarterback in franchise history, eventually taking over the reins. You're going to have Justin friggin' Jefferson, Jordan Addison, T.J. Hawkinson, Christian Darrisaw, guys at premium positions. I consider tight end, a pass-catching tight end, a premium position. Don't at me. And I mean, that defense under Flores is just getting better and sexier. Man. I know that the division is tough and young, and it's going to be a dogfight every single year from here on out, but I don't care. We got our guy. We got adults in the building. We got great coaches, and we're going to extend Justin Jefferson a long time here very soon. I mean, things are feeling great. Plus, all that cap space in 2025. Woo. Come on, man. That's right. Also, Anthony Edwards and the Wolves doing things. Twins having the win sausage. That's great. Max Hegna. If Penix was still on board at pick 10, will the Vikings still go with McCarthy? It's a good question. I'm kind of glad that we didn't have to make that decision. Where I love me some Michael Penix. Don't get me wrong. And I would have understood if they would have gone Penix over McCarthy. But I feel like the gestalt of what this team wants to do is build young from the ground up for the future. And Penix is my guy. I love him. He's a dog. That Texas game was amazing. But, of course, it's ironic that these two went head-to-head in the national title game because both of them had a very different experience, right? Michigan was beating the piss out of Washington. J.J. McCarthy basically had a game manager game. And Penix, I mean, that Michigan defense is legit. It is what it is. But Penix, I think what Penix is going to do, because Kurt probably won't be 100% for OTAs or maybe even the start of training camp. So I think Penix is going to make it very hard for them to bench him. I think that his alpha attitude is going to come in and just like, hey, you have all these weapons, watch me. And I think that he's going to drop piss missiles to Pitts and Drake London and just look really good, and it's going to be really hard. He is going to get benched because the money is the money, but it's going to make it so difficult. Plus, I kind of feel bad for Kurt because you know that public opinion is going to sway towards Penix, especially when he's putting up highlights in OTAs, in training camp, in preseason if he lights things up. The second that Kurt has a bad play, it's going to be Penix in that stadium. It's ironic that it's Penix because the stadium at Mercedes-Benz blah, blah, blah closes up like a butthole. Also, it's so weird that Mercedes sponsors the Superdome and the Falcons monstrosity, right? So they both play at the Mercedes. Two teams in the same division. It's weird, man. It's like if U.S. Bank sponsored Lambeau. Yeah. But I'm glad they went with McCarthy because the plan is to have the kids sit for a year, develop and grow and show. And I think that in terms of coachability, I'm not saying that Penix isn't coachable, but Penix being a near full 3 years older than McCarthy, that does matter, right? Because in terms of what you can learn McCarthy is wet cement. Like anything that they want to do, he can mold. Penix being a little bit older, maybe some of those bad habits have already been ingrained. That's always a concern. You look at Jaden Daniels, look at some of the other older quarterbacks coming in. You look at Bo Nix. So I'm glad that they didn't have to make that decision, but I still think that they would have gone with McCarthy, given everything that Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi have talked about. But Penix would have been fun, man. Rudy Peel, excuse me. Can you explain to me why Gabriel Murphy went undrafted, the pride of UCLA? He checks every box. Whenever I watched Latu's film, he stood out. It can't just be because of his arms. It is a fire every scout in the league. Where, I don't know, like, it's exactly what happened with Ivan Pace Jr., right? So Ivan Pace Jr., extremely productive his last season at Cincinnati, formerly Miami, Ohio, but he went undrafted because he's short arms, and also was a bit of a tweener, I guess. Was he going to be an off-ball guy? Was he going to be an edge guy? But extremely productive, and the Vikings certainly benefited from it. Now, Gabriel Murphy's interesting because the Vikings did their homework, did their diligence, and obviously had a great rapport with him on his 30 visit. And everything except for size-wise. Like, arm length at 30.5 is extremely short for an edge rusher. And also, he's short and he's light. Plus, he was listed at 239. He came into the combine at 247, which means walking around his senior season at UCLA, he was probably like 230. Yeah, so I don't mind it. Like, is he going to be a 3-down player in this league? Probably not. But can he be a situational pass rusher that gets after that ass? Yes. I mean, athletically, he's up there. He's a physical freak. 30.5-inch vert, was second amongst edge rushers, behind only Dallas Turner. Perhaps you heard of him. Also, I mean, they should have brought in his identical twin, Grayson Murphy, who also played at North Texas and UCLA. He had 5 sacks last year. He's with the Dolphins as a UDFA. That would have been fun. I mean, how did that not happen? But Murphy, 61 pressures, 8 sacks last year, 17.2% pressure rate. He and Latu and also his brother just getting after it for the Bruins. But I don't know, like, teams day 3, they do weird stuff, right? And undersized, turns 24 in October. Maybe that factored in. Was he a product of Latu getting so much attention on the other side? Who knows? But also, so Machiavellian, and this goes back to Pace too. I feel like at a certain point of the draft, a player and the agent would rather go undrafted because I would say probably around the 6th round. Like, if you haven't been drafted in the first 5 rounds, you're just like, let me go undrafted. So you can choose where you want to go. So if you've been around 30 visits, you can pick the coaching facility and place to live that you want. Also, you can take a look at the roster, whichever teams are offering you. Be like, I have a better chance to make this one. I'm going to go here. Also, so guaranteed money for the UDFAs isn't out yet. But it wouldn't shock me if Gabriel Murphy got a decent chunk of guaranteed money. Because, so going back to Ivan Pace Jr., last year, Ivan Pace Jr. picked the Vikings, made the roster, and was a rookie starter. Obviously, he saw an opportunity here. Plus, the Vikings gave him $263,000 guaranteed, which was more than any 6th or 7th round pick got with their rookie contracts. So, yeah, Ivan Pace Jr. worked the system, and maybe have no knowledge of this, but maybe it's a spot too where maybe Gabriel Murphy's agent was just like, hey, we haven't been drafted in the first 5 rounds. Call out to teams, do not draft me. Something like that. That power play has been pulled before. So I don't know. Like, I think that the Vikings definitely got themselves a diamond in the rough in Murphy, and I think that adding to a position of strength. Let's get it on, man. I love it. Speaking of position of strength, Dallas Turner on the edge, but Hooper asked, should the Vikings have taken a corner like Terrion Arnold rather than Dallas Turner? So the Vikings could have just chilled, took Terrion Arnold as opposed to moving up and getting Dallas Turner at 17, which it's always a chicken or the egg thing, right? Does really good coverage by the corners lead to a better pass rush since they get more time to get home, or does that quick immediate pass rush make better corners? And Flores, being a defensive guy, a defensive back guy, because he played DB at Boston College, then he worked his way up from the back end. You think that he would lean that way, right? And also the fact that he said you can never have enough corners. But I feel like with an edge rusher, So it factors into all phases, both run and the pass. And I feel like the baseline between a great cornerback and a good cornerback, I feel like that's a lot closer than a great edge rusher and a good edge rusher. Catch my drift. Where, I mean, if a guy is able to get his own rush, he has his dossier, say specifically an edge rusher. So he has his dossier on the tackles. He knows his tendencies in this spot. He knows what he's shown him. He knows the counters that he's ready for, and he hits it, right? Whereas if you're just an average run-of-the-mill edge rusher, will an extra half a second allow you to get to the quarterback? Probably not. Whereas if you're a good to average cornerback, will an extra half second shaved off the time that you have to cover be beneficial to you? Yes, I think it will. So I think at the end of the day, if you look at pass rusher money, you look at cornerback money. Cornerback money is still high, but in terms of absolute peak and also in terms of quantity of tier one cornerback contracts, it's not even close to edge rushers. So I think at the end, the edge rusher is more valuable, even though both of them are premium positions. But, I mean, you really couldn't have gone wrong. Like, I would have been fine if the Vikings would have sticked and picked and took Arnold or traded up and maneuvered and got Dallas Turner in the spot. Lastly, half-ton Chevy. Khyree Jackson, 4th-round pick out of the Oregon, will be the steal of this draft. And so I've had time to think about it. And I wasn't really on board with Khyree Jackson, even though the Vikings did a ton of homework on him. Roll Tide. And mainly he's tight-hipped. He's not insanely gifted in terms of straight line speed, but his physicality, you can't coach. You can't teach. You can't do that, right? Because size always wins. And him being 6'4", long-armed, and also extremely physical at the line of scrimmage as well as in the run game, I think that's a great floor to walk in on. Now, yeah, I know that he's going to be 25 by the time he takes his first NFL snap. I understand that. But if we can get 3-4 years of his peak and he can catch up quickly, I think the Vikings may have gotten themselves a steal. Because, I mean, there's a lot of things in there. Number one, he's only started 14 career games. He was mainly a backup at Alabama, although he did start the national title game against Georgia and played well. Really one full year starting experience at Oregon, but it was a hell of a year at Oregon. Plus, he is raw, but in terms of coaching that he got as a DB, I mean, Saban is a DB coach at heart, so he absolutely got that. Plus, Dan Lanning is a great defensive mind in Oregon. So I think that there is valid questions of, does he love the game as he stepped away when he was younger, tried to be a professional video game player, worked at a grocery store, but also all the things that held him back and made him an older prospect also work in his favor because he's lived life. He does have life experience. He's experienced having to work his way up from Alabama. He's experienced getting a year of a beautiful run in Oregon, right? And also all these questions that we had, I'm sure the Vikings had them and 10 times more. But Flores at the end of the day and Kwesi decided, hey, the juice is worth the squeeze. We're taking him at 108. And also Flores and Kwesi said that they see him as an outside corner as opposed to kicking inside, being a hybrid, big slot and also move tight end matchup guy. And this versatility in Flores' system. Now that could change. Certainly, but in terms of things that you can't teach, things that you can't coach, feisty, long, physical, everything else they can backfill. So I've certainly warmed up to him because, well, see, that's the thing too. Like, you can have your thoughts, you can have your critiques about prospects, but once he's on your team, that MFer is going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. That's right. Woo, woo. Skull Ducks or roll Ducks. It's whatever. Anyways, that's it. That's Q&A for this beautiful Tuesday. You guys are the best. You know what to do. Skull production value.